Hello YouTubers, my name is Frederick Lopez and you are on a new episode of Hidden Gems. Today I'm going to be going over my thoughts and review of a good old 1985 film called Real Genius. Real Genius is directed by Martha Coolidge, stars Val Kilmer as Chris Knight, Gabriel Jarrett as Mitch Taylor, Michelle Mayrink as Jordan, William Atherton as Professor Jerry Hathaway, John Grease as Laszlo Holyfield, Robert Prescott as Kent. The film Real Genius follows Mitch Taylor, one of the youngest students ever accepted to a university, known for its program for geniuses. He's partnered up with his roommate, science club legend, Chris Knight, on a project to develop a high-powered laser. Together with their hyperkinetic friends, they employ their intellects in the pursuit of bigger blasts, practical jokes, and a deeper understanding of what real genius is. When their final, functional laser is stolen by their teacher for a military weapon, they decide to get even. That is a plot summary of the film Real Genius. This is one of Val Kilmer's earlier roles. It's after Top Secret, but before Top Gun, and of course Batman Forever, Tombstone, The Saint. And Mitch, you may recognize him in another film called The Karate Kid Part 3. He was the one that got punched in the nose by Daniel LaRusso. Crazy, right? Well, Laszlo Holyfield is also Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. Anyway, it's a very well done movie. Martha Coolidge directs it. She later on directed other television shows and then a film called The Prince and Me. And it's one of Brian Grazer's earlier films as a producer as well. And originally, the plot of this was loosely based on some real Caltech students who actually developed an experiment, and they kind of based that off of a real-life event. Was it as crazy as this? Probably not, but the premise is interesting, and the writers both did the screenplays for like the Police Academies, Naked Gun films, Lucas Talking 2, just different films, so they know comedy, but this film, like many other 80s films, has a lot of heart to it. Yeah, I saw this in probably about the late 90s on Encore, one of my favorite films. It introduced me to my favorite song called Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. That is like my number one favorite song thanks to this film. Number one and I'm Fallen by Chaz Jankel are really good songs as well. Yeah, it's pretty much a basic plot. You follow Mitch Taylor. He's pretty much coming out of high school. He's a genius. And he gets accepted to the school where they accept young, gifted minds. Not Professor Xavier's school, but just a regular college. And William Atherton, of course, he's like the asshole of the 80s. He does it so perfectly. He's almost like Christopher McDonald in the 90s in all the movies. But he's a professor, and he pretty much gets Mitch on board to develop this final experiment, but he's not telling him that it's a military weapon. It starts off and you see him get a call from the government. They're trying to develop this weapon that can like basically shoot a laser and assassinate anybody through a satellite. So they need it by a deadline, so he's friends with the military, so they get him saying, hey, we'll fund this for your class, whatever, your payroll, make us an experiment. So he gets Mitch Taylor teamed with Chris Knight, who's played by Val Kilmer. He's very down-to-earth, not your typical genius. He's very unorthodox, but you find out that he used to be like Mitch Taylor, and you realize there's more to life. And also, we get introduced to a character of Laszlo. He lives inside a closet. It has like a secret basement tunnel, and it's crazy. You figure out that he is actually smarter than everyone combined, but he figured out that they were using his work as a weapon. So you see why he's that way, and Mitch and Chris run into that very same predicament throughout the film. But yeah, it's great. Actress plays Jordan. I like the stuff between her and Mitch. I like the relationship between the characters, and then there's also the antagonist who's kind of like the second in command under the professor. Is named Kent. He's kind of a teacher's pet. Kind of reminds me of a more dorky Anthony Michael Hall, but that character's great. I love the humor there where he like introduces himself to Mitch. He's kind of really mean throughout the whole movie to Mitch. But I love it where Chris Knight introduces Mitch to Kent, and he's like, "Hello, this is Mitch. This is Kent. This is what happens when you're too sexually frustrated." And the jokes like that are just funny. And it does get deep at moments because you see that his parents aren't as gifted, and they want him to be there. They already have a roommate in his old room. He gets picked on there, and you really get to see the toll of being a genius is in front of other geniuses at such a young age, but you also get to see what real genius is, what makes a real genius, and what genius truly is. And that's something that Mitch learns through Chris Knight and the others, and I like that. And I like how they get him back with putting his car into his room, and then the part where they install this microchip, and they're like, "Kent, this is God." There's a lot of funny stuff there. It has a lot of great humor, and ultimately it's one of those rare movies of the 80s. It's a more well-known movie than some others, but I still feel like it's an underrated film. Not many people know about Real Genius. To me, it's one of the quintessential 80 films. It's a more imperative that you see this film. And I went through college, and there's a lot of movies in college, and parties, and sorority houses, and fraternity houses. Real Genius is pretty much what college really felt like. That's like the one that really got it accurate to me, to what the atmosphere and everything felt like in college. Real Genius got the most accurate to what I personally felt. And I like it. The filmmakers went through their research. They knew the science part, but they actually did their research so you can make convincing characters. And you can tell they're not just making it up and trying to sound nerdy. It's not like a Big Bang Theory thing at all. No, they're actually intelligent. They feel like real people. I like that. Jordan and Mitch, their chemistry feels very real. Chris Knight and Mitch as friends. Laszlo feels very real. And there's this one part where he wins a sweepstakes by Frito-Lay's coupons. Somebody actually did that in real life. They based it off this guy who basically went through the coupons at McDonald's to get a sweepstakes and ended up winning it out of like a certain amount of times. He like basically based the ratio of the chances it would take to win and won that way, and that's interesting. There's a little bit of real life events that went into this movie, but not entirely. It does have a level of fiction. There is popcorn. It's just a crazy movie. Martha Coolidge does a fantastic job. She did Prince and Me, but I like the writing. You can tell it's Police Academy writers, Naked Gun. There's a lot of comedy, but there's a lot of heart, and the characters feel very real, like I said earlier. And just everything blends together well. It's just one of those good atmospheres. You're really invested with Mitch Taylor. You're in his shoes. It feels like when you go to school or suffer hardships, or when others basically look down upon you because of age or skill. And I like that. It feels very real. You can relate to Mitch Taylor. He's not a jerk. He's your average everyday kid. I love that. Chris Knight is very charismatic. Val Kilmer does a fantastic job as Chris Knight. And there's even some scenes that are not in the movie that are in the trailer. Like he's on his desk and there's balloons. That's not in the movie. So there are certain scenes that weren't in the final cut that are in the trailer. But there's a lot of great stuff what they do with their mind and the comedy between Chris Knight and Mitch. And one being kind of loose and down to earth, and the other one being kind of a square and not really having that much experience in life. He's always so focused on studies that he forgets to live, and I like seeing that dynamic between them, and ultimately what helps in Mitch Taylor's character arc from the beginning to the end of this film. And yeah, Kent, he looks like Anthony Michael Hall with braces, but he's a usual bully and he's a jerk. They all are jerks, but I like having not only an obstacle for Chris Knight and Mitch to face, but also someone that they kind of like make fun of, where it's like, yeah, he's a pain in the ass, but are really afraid of him. It's like, yeah, not really. So that's kind of funny. It's interesting to have an antagonist in that way that can be an obstacle, yet not really that much of a challenge for the protagonist. And again, Val Kilmer has that level of charm and just all-around humor in the writing and the way his character is with others, professors, other students. It's just funny and very enjoyable. But I love it because through the course of the film, Mitch grows closer to these people, and again, they realize their class assignment is made as a weapon. So they pretty much in the third act have to go and stop their experiment from working, and also get the dean and say, hey, our professor used our experiment as a weapon, we have to stop this. Make the professor's house have popcorn. It is crazy, and then that whole ending scene is just fantastic. But it's a very basic film, but it's a very heartfelt film, and I like the jokes, I like the humor, I like the actors. It's one of those movies, the 80s is kind of a weird generation where I could nitpick some movies, but like they have a certain type of magic that I don't find anything wrong with them. like really wrong with them. Like, you're just not human if you don't enjoy an 80s film. Like, it just has a certain type of magic to where, like, I enjoy it. It didn't make me mad. I didn't roll my eyes. I didn't find anything wrong with it. So because of that, Real Genius, I give an A. And if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's available on DVD and Amazon Video. Maybe on Netflix, I'm not sure. But definitely check out Real Genius. It's a very, very well made movie from the 1980s. If you want to see an early, younger Val Kilmer, check out Real Genius. It's after Top Secret, but before Willow, Top Gun, and all the other films. So yeah, definitely check that out. And yeah, it's one of those rare 80s films. They're talking about a remake. I don't know how that's going to be, but it'd be interesting. But I like how you didn't get too many big actors in it. It was just regular people, and I like that. I like the actor who plays Mitch. He's in a lot of other roles. Frost Nixon, Apollo 13. He's in smaller roles. Karate Kid 3, as I mentioned earlier, but I wouldn't mind seeing him in more stuff. And the rest of the actors do good. You get to see Uncle Rico earlier with hair, who's longer. It's crazy. And William Atherton, again, he's perfect at playing kind of like the jerk of the 80s. I love it. This is one of my favorite roles of his besides Ghostbusters and Die Hard. But it's one of those films that I feel is definitely underrated. And I wish it got a Blu-ray release. It really needs a Blu-ray release. It's too big of a film not to. I've seen many smaller films get a Blu-ray release. They need to remaster it, retrospective, Shout Factory, that thing. I don't know. But yeah, that's just a brief overview of Real Genius. I probably could go through it more, but that's just what I think of the film and why I think you should go see it. It has a great soundtrack, great humor. It's just one of those feel-good 80s films of 1985. So yeah, definitely go see Real Genius. And then in the coming weeks, I'm going to have some more Hidden Gem episodes, but it won't be next week, but it'll be pretty soon. My next episode will be over 1994's The Shadow, directed by Russell Mulcahy, starring Alec Baldwin, Penelope Ann Miller, Ian McKellen, and Tim Curry. I'll be going over The Shadow.